Hi, I'm Roy, and this is Yard of Random Books, my channel that now has a spiffy intro slide. I'm back. So, I bought a shelf full of random hardbacks, old books that were being sold by length just for decoration rather than reading, but I'm reading them anyway, testing out a theory that any book has something marvellous about it if only you look closely enough, however unwanted they might be. So this week I plucked out a novel, Under the Net by Iris Murdoch. And I realised I didn't really know anything about Iris Murdoch beyond the fact that she was a novelist. I would have guessed that she's kind of middle to highbrow, but I had no familiarity with her work, never read any, and obviously then didn't know how this book might fit in with her career, but or what people think about it. So it's a reprint edition from the mid 50s. The actual book came out in 54. This was published in 55, but not having a dust jacket, it's got no reviews, no quotes, no this book changed my life type of stuff. So I knew nothing about it. Obviously, I'm aware that there's the internet, but in a few clicks I could know an abundance of things about Iris Murdoch. But I decided just to plunge in anyway, that just reading it cold would be more interesting than kind of formulating a view before I'd even started it, which I'm glad I did, because that's probably getting quite close to the experience of reading it at the time. Um, so it's a first person novel. The protagonist narrator is a kind of he's meant to be a writer of sorts, a translator, lives quite precariously, sponging off other people, living for free, and the whole living arrangements thing kicks off the plot when he and this other guy, Finn, who's his sort of, he says like a servant, um, they're evicted from where they've been living with somebody, and so his first mission is to find somewhere to live, and really the whole book is him trying to do various things, find people, go off on these sort of treks to find a person or to resolve some kind of situation in what gets increasingly more absurd. So part of the plot, for instance, concerns the kidnapping of a movie star dog, a canine movie star, and things like that. Just it's a, what do they call it? Picaresque, one damn thing after another kind of story. The character isn't very likable, but he is quite witty. The descriptions he comes out with have a kind of dryness about them. Um, I like this early on passage when he's talking about this sort of newsagent shop where he hangs out as a kind of base, and the woman like forwards his mail and stuff. Um, I'm going to read you a bit. Another peculiarity of Mrs. Tinkham's shop is that it is full of cats. An ever-increasing family of tabbies, sprung from one enormous matriarch, sit upon the counter and on the empty shelves, somnolent and contemplative, their amber eyes narrowed and winking in the sun, a reluctant slit of liquid in an expanse of hot fur. When I come in, one often leaps down and onto my knee, where it sits for a while in a sedate, objective way before slinking into the street and along the shop fronts. But I have never met one of these animals further than 10 yards away from the shop. In the midst sits Mrs. Tinkham herself, smoking a cigarette. She is the only person I know who is literally a chain smoker. She lights each one from the butt of the last. How she lights the first one of the day remains to me a mystery, for she never seems to have any matches in the house when I ask her for one. I once arrived to find her in great distress because her current cigarette had fallen into a cup of coffee and she had no fire to light another. Perhaps she smokes all night, or perhaps there is an undying cigarette which burns eternally in her bedroom. There's also a lot of philosophy and politics in it. So sometimes the characters are speaking about ideas in a way that isn't very realistic, that people probably don't normally say outside of maybe academic circles. So you sometimes that grates a bit, the sort of, is it a novel of ideas, is it a comedy? It's easy to see it as a sort of period piece because the descriptions of 1950s London are fantastic, but of course they were contemporary writing at the time. um, there's a great section that's a pub crawl that's so realistically done that you feel kind of slightly hungover and at the end of it. And I bet a lot of the pubs it mentions have probably disappeared now or changed beyond recognition. So, if apart from anything else, it's a great document of a sort of bohemian London of the 50s. I was actually able to use my where's it gone? Somewhere. Yes, here we go. My Penguin Guide to London from 1958. Obviously a little bit later, but I could actually match up things like, where does a number 88 bus go? Now I know. So yeah, an enjoyable novel. When I finished it, I did have a butcher's on the web to see what it's all about, and I think I was right. The Browometer, she was an academic. She'd published about philosophy before she moved into fiction, so the sort of highbrow, infusing and enjoyable middle brow plot is kind of how I would describe it. So Under the Net, if I can try and put it across, the net is the precise world of theories and ideas, and under the net are our actual lives that can't be captured, by any of those theories, and language itself, because it's always more fluid and there's always more to it. That's my take. Would I read more Iris Murdoch? I wouldn't not read Iris Murdoch based on this. It was her first novel. It's got a bit of that sense of, I'm going to put everything I can into this book because it might be the only one I ever do. But yep, still pretty good. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and that's my life of Under the Net. So random reading, interesting, because I probably wouldn't. Well, I doubt I would ever have come across this otherwise, and I did really enjoy it. So it's the shabby decor shelf is the gift that keeps on giving. Although there are things here where I've no idea how I'm going to extract any pleasure or interest out of them, but they're up for the challenge. So yeah, that is my random book of the week. Thank you very much. If you want to see more of this, see how I survive the rest of it, please do subscribe. I love to get comments, questions, etc. Other than that, goodbye.